Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project. Copyrighted edition for our video channel. Huck's in the building. She's being a really good girl today. She said, "Dad, I'll try to hang out here. I may fall asleep. It's not that I'm bored." Yeah, she's a good girl. Oh yeah. She loves this. You got a lot of friends out there watching right now. Did you know that? Yeah. Well, Huck, we're going to be talking about some things related to Huck in this program. And let's get to it. So, I told you before that we have subgroups of missing people: physicians, mushroom pickers, berry pickers, hunters, and I would even say mountain runners. And in the last several years, we've had several mountain runners, mountain trail runners disappear. So, what's the common denominator? To me, it's alone in the wilderness. And in the cases we're going to talk about today, it's exactly what it is. Now, mushrooms, super healthy for you, really good for your joints. And berries, we'll talk about those in a little bit. I would advise you not to go mushroom picking in the woods unless you are an expert at identifying mushrooms. And there are some very small subtleties in the mushrooms, and you make a mistake, you're dead. That's how poisonous mushrooms are. So you don't want to do that. One time I have gone into the woods and picked mushrooms was with some Native American friends in Hoopa. And it was an absolute treat to go. And one of the things I learned is one of the ways you identify certain mushrooms is by smell. And they were 100% right. They let me smell a poisonous one, and then they let me smell a real one. There's a huge difference. And just one of the things that you learn in life. But would I go out now and pick mushrooms? Oh no. I'd go out and look and snoop around, but am I eating them? Heck no. So, today's cases. First case involves a man from Portland, Oregon. His name was Ralph Day, 60 years old. Went missing August 23rd, 1953. And he drove from his home in Portland about an hour and a half to an area southwest of Mount Hood ski area, a place called Wolf Camp Butte. And he was with his wife and two friends, and they went up there to pick huckleberries. From what I could tell, it almost appears they left after church to go pick the huckleberries, because Ralph was described as last seen wearing slacks, a light sweater, coat, hat, and had a few matches in his coat. Also said that he had high blood pressure. I have never seen anybody picking up huckleberries in slacks. And in fact, when Dave goes out to pick huckleberries, I'm pretty cash. Most of the time it's pretty warm, so I'm usually wearing shorts, some hiking boots. I got my my bear spray on my left hip, my gun on my right hip, my phone in my pocket, and Angie and I have an agreement that we always keep each other in sight. And I have said before that I have seen bears before out berry picking. Never grizzly bears, but I saw one huge black bear one time. So, Ralph and the friends decided to drive up there. Now, if you've never been to Mount Hood, I would encourage you to go. They have a beautiful lodge at the base of the mountain. There's a ski resort there. In the summertime, it's kind of neat. The woods around there are really thick. And Mount Hood is no small-time mountain. A lot of people have disappeared up there, and I've talked about some. The peak is about 11,239 feet. It's the fourth highest in the Cascade Range. Now, Wolf Butte Mountain is 6,483 feet, and there's an old watchtower, fire watchtower at the top. There was a few years ago, at least. I don't know if it's still there. Now, I will tell you this. There's all kinds of berries out there that you can pick. I just learned about a new berry the other day. But we've been out in Montana and picked wild strawberries, wild raspberries, wild asparagus. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. But I can tell you that picking huckleberries is like a whole nother art. Let me tell you a little bit about huckleberries before we start. They're found in the northwest of the US and Canada. They're usually in elevations between 2,000 and 11,000 feet. Here in Montana, I found them between like 4,500 and 6,000 feet. The size of the berry varies greatly. I've seen them, and I picked them as small as like a pencil eraser. And some we've picked that were about half the size of a ping pong ball. And I can tell you that when we were picking those, we were pretty sure they were huckleberries, but they were so big we couldn't believe it. Yeah, they were huckleberries. And we tasted them, and oh my gosh, they were so good. And the cool thing was they were so big, you didn't need a lot to make a pie. That was awesome. Now, huckleberries are a strange kind of plant. And this is why this all kind of surrounds us people picking huckleberries specifically. So it takes 15 years for the huckleberry bush or shrub to grow to produce huckleberries. It's a long time. And the shrub can vary in size from, real small to huge. The berry itself is super rich in antioxidants. The berry and its ingredients fight free radicals, and some of the richest sources of protective compounds that you could eat are in that huckleberry. Now, when I first started to do the research into people missing with huckleberries, I looked into this. And I looked into it because it's puzzling to me. Because bears eat all kinds of berries. It doesn't matter. Bears will eat anything. They're omnivores. But what is it about huckleberries? Well, it's about one of the best things you could eat in the outdoors. Angie and I have been hiking many times, and we'll just slow down around a huckleberry bush and grab a whole handful and just keep hiking and just nibble on it as you go. Sometimes they're a little tart, but I love them. They're really good. And obviously, all organic. Now, Ralph and his friends, they drive up. They're in one car. They get to this location. And he gets out and he goes, okay, it's noon. I'll be back at 1 o'clock. I'm going to go collect a bunch of berries. I'll be back. The other group goes some other area. Point of separation. Hour later, the group comes back, wait around. Ralph's not anywhere. Now, the way you've got to look at this 1 hour window, let's pretend you're not looking for huckleberries. Just hike 30 minutes out in the direction that Ralph went and stop. From that point inward should be the area that you're looking for this man. Because he said he was going to go out looking for huckleberries for an hour. Well, if it takes a half an hour to walk out, it's going to take you a half an hour to get back. Not much picking's going to go on, but that would be your outer perimeter. The group waited around. Then they decide that they're going to hike out into the area they last saw him go out, call his name, look for him. They do nothing. So at 3:30, the group leaves, and they contact Forest Ranger John Rice, and they report Ralph as a missing person, and they said that we need help finding him. Well, it was so late that they couldn't get people together. So John puts a call out to the sheriff's office and local search and rescue. Says we need people. And at August 24th, the search and rescue starts. And it starts with 50 people. That's a good start. Forest Service, local volunteers, local wildland firefighters. And it was raining that day, made searching difficult. But they gridded the area out, they did it the right way, and they went about it methodically. August 25th, this time they got 150 searchers in there. And they also got the mountain search and rescue team and 5 canine teams in there as well. Heavy rains continued. August 26th, the Forest Service made a public plea for more searchers. Now, Ralph was the son of a very prominent Medford physician at the time. And the physician's daughter was his wife. Unclear what importance that had, but it was brought up in many of the articles as though this physician had some pull somehow. Well, later on it said that the brother of the physician was the county treasurer in this area. Well, that maybe helped. They got more and more people into the area as it went on. Grid searches continued. August 28th, 500 searchers were in there. And they were working, 150 of them were working in an area at the bottom of a cliff. This was actually fairly smart, considering the number of people I talked to you about that have fallen off cliffs and died. Well, they searched 15 acres at the bottom of this cliff and they didn't find anything. The other 350 searchers were up into other gridded areas. There was another public plea for more people, and what they were told is that they wanted you to bring your rain gear and your own sleeping bag. And they were going to put everybody else up at the Clackamas ski building at Mount Hood. Not that far away. It's about 10 air miles. They got more people up, and then suddenly, on August 29th, they terminated the search. They found nothing. Now, family and friends came up from the rest of that summer looking, and they were hoping that with the hunting season starting, and we know hunters go off trail, that they would be able to find him, and they never did. So you got Huckleberry Picker, a subgroup of the missing. You've got point of separation when Ralph says, hey, I'm going to go this way, point of separation. They bring in canine teams, got nothing. Weather, constant rain, and this area of Oregon, Washington is a big cluster zone of missing people. The Columbia River is just north of where this occurred. It's a huge river, state line between Washington and Oregon. The Mount Hood area, it's always puzzled me because there's a lot of strangeness associated with that mountain. I could probably talk to you the next 2 hours about all the strangeness I've seen there, but I won't. But here's the map. Mount Hood, the bright yellow. And this is Wolf Camp Butte, the red dot. Again, it's about 10 air miles across. This is the Columbia River up here. Now, if you've never gone to Hood River, it's a good wind sailing spot. It's beautiful. It's about an hour and a half drive from Portland to Mount Hood. I would say if you're ever in Portland, go do the drive. It's beautiful, epic, and you'll like it. Now, at the top of Wolf Camp Butte, I don't believe it's even there anymore, but this was the lookout tower. I think they rebuilt it. And there were several notations that the lookout tower was used as a place that they were looking for Ralph from, and he was in that general area. So, man never found. Huckleberry picker. Now the next case. We don't talk about ladies that disappear too often, but this is about a woman that disappeared. Her name was Jacqueline Bobb. Everyone called her Jackie. 41 years old. This is Jackie. Missing July 6, 2004 in the Namaya Valley, British Columbia. She was picking mushrooms. She was a member of the Stone Reserve of First Nations, and she left with some of those people and her good friends and her best friend, and they went into the Williams Lake area. She lived in Alexis, BC. It was about an hour and a half drive, 2-hour drive into where she wanted to go with these friends. Now, once you know something about mushrooms, and you see a big fire during the summer, oh, you start clapping your hands. I hate fires. But in 2003, there was a big forest fire in the area where they went, and it decimated that area. Well, the first summer after a big fire, mushrooms were the first thing to start growing. Everyone knows this. It's in the mushrooms. So Jackie and her friends went up there. They were going to make a big haul. I get it. Totally understand it. But July 6th, the group was there, and they met for lunch. And they talked about where they went, what they got, what they saw. And you got to remember, this area was decimated. No more big trees. Everything was burned to the ground. You could see for miles. Well, the group had lunch, and then they decided that they're going to separate, and they'll go out looking for mushrooms alone. Okay? Point of separation. Sep group, mushroom pickers. They agreed to meet back at 8 o'clock. And you think, well, that's real late. Not really. When you're that far north, it stays like till 10 o'clock or later. And at 8 o'clock, the group comes back. Jackie's not there. The group honks their horns. Several of them walk out into the area where Jackie was seen, calling her name. They got nothing. Now, it was a pretty healthy drive from where they were back into civilization. And it was now 10, 11 o'clock. So it wasn't until the next morning that the group was able to contact law enforcement and report Jackie as missing. And they drove back to Alexis Creek because that was the biggest RCMP station that they could report her. They explained the exact location. It was in the Brittany Valley Wilderness. Prince George is about 140 miles north of Alexis Creek. The profile on Jackie. This is an interesting one because I've told you many times that people who disappear have unusual things with them. With Ralph, he had high blood pressure. That's not very unusual. A lot of people have high blood pressure, but Jackie's was a little different. Jackie's profile, smart, in decent shape for somebody that almost had you could claim a disability. She carried a lighter and had a pocket knife. She could hike many miles. She had no other reported health conditions, otherwise I'm going to tell you. Solid mental state. And she knew how to make a fire with a match. That's important. Now, Jackie had a hip replaced several months before this happened, but she was doing real well. She also had a severe allergy to bees, and she carried an EpiPen. That's a first of any missing person case I've talked to you about, because I've never heard of somebody who carried an EpiPen, even though a lot of us, I don't, but a lot of you do. I get it. So July 8th, the RCMP, fastest way to get there is by helicopter. They flew out, low flew the area. They requested volunteers to go there. And then strange stuff started to happen. The RCMP set up a satellite repeater on one of the ridges. Why do they do this? Because they're carrying radios. And when you're in this valley in the middle of nowhere, the radios aren't going to go out. So they put up a satellite repeater. The radio goes to the satellite, or goes to the ridgetop repeater, sends it to a satellite, and ricochets it back down to headquarters in Alexis Creek. Right after they set it up, a thunderstorm comes in, lightning hits the repeater and knocks it out. Oh, I can just imagine what they were thinking. And then rain and wind comes in and hits the area and essentially shuts down searching that first day. Well, they had already called for a group out of Williams Lake to send their canines. The group had notoriety for finding people, and they were en route. And then the RCMP flew their plane through this area in a grid pattern for 3 days. They got several hundred people up into this area searching. Many of them stayed overnight because it was such a drive in. And then they released what Jackie was wearing. She was wearing a red coat with blue lining and a red baseball cap. Bright colors. So, if I was a searcher, I know what I'd be looking for, something red, right? And I stated this a couple years ago, I'm going to say it again. You have a coat, and you see a search helicopter, you're missing. See a search helicopter or a plane. You take your coat off and you swing it above your head in a circle. That motion and that movement is more often to catch the eye than if you just sit there and wave your hands. This was told to me by a search and rescue helicopter pilot many years ago. And I think it's really good info, and I pass it on when I can. So July 9th through the 14th, 100 to 300 searchers were there daily. And that's quite good getting into a remote area. They were finding nothing. At the end of the day, July 14th, the RCMP gave an interview. And I'm going to quote you what the RCMP searcher said. She said, it is unusual that not one clue regarding Bob's whereabouts was uncovered during the massive search and rescue. Her name was Jackie Bob. She goes on, it's puzzling a person can disappear without a trace. Let's stop there. If you're a newcomer to Missing 411, you may say, yeah, that is pretty weird. If you've been here for a few years, you know that's pretty much the norm on our cases. I know that comment goes towards maybe the people weren't being honest about where she disappeared. I just had that hunch. In reality, that would tell me that there's something else at play. Not criminal, but something unusual. So July 20th, 6 days later, they terminate the search and rescue. Nothing's found. The RCMP put out a cost analysis that they spent $200,000 on the search and it was the largest one ever in this part of British Columbia. The family decided to stay in the area 4 more weeks looking for Jackie. Disappearances of Native American women while hunting, fishing, berry picking, mushroom picking are extremely rare. This is not in reference to Native American or First Nations women that disappear off the reservation. Those are not rare. Jackie is someone who had been doing this her entire life. Her parents had taken her into the outdoors. She knew where to look. She knew how to look. Finding not a trace, very odd. 6 years later, 2010, Jackie's friends, tribal members, mount another huge search in the same area. They stay for a week. When I read this, I felt bad because I wish I could have talked to him. Because after 3 to 5 years in the wild, especially in an area that's very wet and very wild, meaning lots of critters, lots of mammals, and I mean rodents, mammals, rodents, raccoons, possums, skunks, bobcats, mountain lions, bear, grizzly bear. After all of these things, the chances of finding even a bone are almost zero. The animals in the wild like to chew on human bones. They like to chew on all kinds of bones because there's nutrients that they actually get out of the bones that are hard to find in the wild. And you can actually tell some of the time, if you find the bones, what kind of animal's been chewing on it. But the chances of Jackie's friends and relatives finding anything, almost zero. And that's the way it was. It was almost zero. The flora of the forest is very efficient. And I mean that sincerely. If something dies on the forest floor, it won't be that long before there's almost nothing there. The University of Tennessee has made a study of this. Human bodies decaying and what happens to them, and deer that lay on the forest floor, how fast they decay and go away. It's very fast. There's at least a couple million deer in Montana. That's my best guess. And I've never seen a fully intact deer skeleton ever in the woods in California or Montana. I've never seen bear. There's 65,000 bear in California. In my decades of walking those woods, I never found anything. I found a few bones here and there, but never anything intact. You almost have to be on it right after it happens within that first week to find anything of value. So, in this case, you have Ralph Day, huckleberries, missing. Never found. Jacqueline Bob, missing, British Columbia, mushroom picking, never found. I encourage you, if you're ever in an area that has huckleberries, go out and grab a handful and see what you think. You can look them up online, and they're pretty distinct. They're almost like a dark purple, dark blue. Again, they vary in size a lot, but try them, see what you think, and don't ever be bashful about asking people on the trail, hey, is this huckleberry bush? Most people know. And just don't do this alone. Too many critters out there that when you're bent over focusing on the berry, you're not focusing on what's behind you. And that's where you should be focusing on. And you think, well, Dave, a bear is like 600 to 1,000 pounds. You can hear it coming. No, you won't. Bears can be on you before you ever know it. So thanks for being here. Remember, the kindness revolution. It costs us nothing to be kind to one another. And it will pick up you, and it will pick up the person you're smiling at if you just do that. Open the door for them, carry their bags of groceries if they're disabled. The other day I saw a guy changing a tire for a lady. Those kind of things, karma, it's good karma. It's good. I wish more of us would be kinder people. The world would be a better place. Every time Huck comes up to me and wants some loves, how can I say no? I've got to be kind. Thanks again for being here. Please make sure you are subscribed. Yes, subscribed. Paulides out.